In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
Ntate Lebogang Maile, thank you so much for giving us your time. We know you're a very important man.
I'm not important.
Not
I wish
enough.
I was. I wish I was. And thanks for having me. I'm humbled.
You know, Moya, we like to unpack our history and to understand the context of where we are, especially as young people, because it's a very young audience and they're trying to connect. I mean, we jumped from apartheid to a rainbow nation and now we're at a GNU and there's emotions that haven't been unpacked for people. So before I even get to body GNU, can I ask about where do you fit in politically? What's your history? You know, because you're a young leader.
Yes. No, that's an important question because though I was not in the struggle and I was very young in the 80s because I was born in 1979. But I have experienced apartheid and what it did to our people because I grew up in a political family. My two brothers were involved in the struggle. My mother was a unionist, and we were constantly harassed by the police as a family. But also my own surroundings at the time. It was clear that something was wrong. That's why I was able to join just after 1990, around 91 or so, the ANC Youth League, and then subsequently the Congress of South African Students. And I had the privilege of becoming its national president in 1995. And that has exposed me to a lot of things and also taught me a lot about leadership, and it also gave me an opportunity to contribute in the trajectory that the country had to take at the time, and that included the participation in the drafting of the South African Schools Act, and we waged a lot of struggles at the time to make sure that we abolish, and these are struggles that have always been there: corporal punishment, you abolish things like school fees in public schools. As you know, today we have what we know as what is known as non-paying schools. Those are the struggles that were waged from long time ago, and we continued with them. We will not claim that it was our struggles, but we took them to the next level, and we led that process which took us to the enactment of the Schools Act in 1996.
What is the Schools Act for the younger people who...
Well, the Schools Act, it's a law that governs the schools, which talks about the governance arrangement. You've got what you call school governing bodies today. They used to be called parent, teachers, student associations. You've got what they call LRCs today. We used to call them SRCs at the time. It governs how schools must be managed, issues of language, determination, and everything that has to do with the schools. That's what at the time it was called. So we I think a part of a generation that I will say which connects that generation of the young lions. So there's a generation that was called the young lions, and that's why today you still hear people saying raw young lions.
Yes.
They refer to that generation, and that generation Yabo Peter Mugaba, very, very, very radical leader of young people, very vibrant, very intelligent, rooted amongst young people. And I dare say that leaders like Fikile Mbalula, Julius Malema, and the rest of us are inspired by him and that generation of the young lions. So I think we are that generation which actually links and actually say what bridge and make sure that there is a link and a continuation, most importantly, because that generation, remember, and the generations before it, it's the generations that fought for political freedom so that we can be able to vote, have parliament, have the constitution, have the courts, and all the democracy that we see today, Chapter 9 institutions. Then the reason I'm saying it links and it creates that bridge is because our generation is talking about economic freedom, that people must be liberated economically.
So where were you coming from then, and which group? Because I mean, with ANC group, there's different. There's, I don't want to say factions.
Yeah, say that. Say factions. Remember, what you call factions or whatever. So what is?
So who's your squad?
Well, I don't have a squad. You know why I'm saying I don't have a squad? Because how I operate and how things should be is that when we go to a conference, from time to time, we will see things differently. And then with every conference, because every conference is dynamic, every conference has got its future, you can't then agree permanently because there are issues that you may agree on today, issues you may not agree on. For instance, when we were in the Congress of South African Students and I was the president, Julius was the chairperson in Limpopo, we used to agree a lot. When we got to the Youth League, there's a time we agreed in the conference where I think Fikile was elected president. Subsequently, in the conference that elected Julius, we didn't agree. And then other conferences, at the Galaga conference, where he was elected second time, I was supposed to contest him, but we didn't have the numbers because of a whole range of issues. But that's a story for another day. But we didn't have numbers.
We're here for those stories.
No, we didn't have numbers. Because we then decided that no, we are not going to contest. So I'm actually amplifying the point that I don't have a permanent squad because I don't believe that people must, even when there are wrong things happening, you must stick together. If we stick together forever, it means we must agree that when things are wrong, we must be able to tell each other. And we must never mislead each other. And there must be a theoretical basis. And it must be based on principles. What are the guiding principles? But if it's based on siyafakana, kumele sidle, and it doesn't help, because the reason why we've joined the struggle, we've joined the revolution and the ANC ultimately is because we believe in certain objectives and principles. But the day we no longer subscribe to those principles and objectives, then we are no longer together. And that's why, in theory, I'm saying in theory, deliberately and guidedly, you see some people leaving organizations. I'm saying in theory and guidedly because recently I no longer think it's about principles and objectives, it's about other things. But in theory, you will leave an organization because you believe it doesn't stand for what you understand to be that organization to be representing and all that. So for me, it's not about ubuchomi, because when we come into an organization, we gather because we believe in certain objectives, and it's not about a friendship. And as long as we pursue those objectives, those principles, those policies, we will be together. So we don't have to like each other, we don't have to lie to each other, and we don't have to protect each other even when we are doing wrong things.
You said something so interesting just now. You talked about ukfagana and that culture, and that is how a lot of people on the ground view ANC. Uti, it's been a fagging situation.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. You see, to be given a responsibility, it's a huge privilege. It's an honor that must be bestowed to the best amongst us, those who qualify and who've got capacity and who have the love to serve the people. It's unfortunate that there are instances when the organization believes that they've given Lebogang a responsibility, and Lebogang might have pretended for the longest of time that he's ready to serve, he's got capacity. But when Lebogang gets there, he starts doing his things. He starts giving abangani bakhe aboNtsiki opportunities and the families and all that. But the ANC doesn't send any one of us to go and cause corruption, doesn't send any one of us not to serve people. The ANC doesn't send any of us to hate people and not to love what we do. When the ANC, when you look at its policies and the deployment procedures and all that, it's clear. And that's why recently we even asked for people's qualifications, because we thought that will help, that at least if somebody has got a minimum qualification like matric, maybe a diploma, at least there's some level of competence. But I must say, there are instances where I've been shocked even myself. I mean, there are instances where I even had to ask people privately, but do you really believe that you deserve a salary? Do you really believe that you deserve to serve people, you know? Because we have to tell each other the truth. And if we don't, unfortunately, it's the ANC that suffers. ANC is suffering now amongst many other issues. It's because some of us who are given responsibilities, we don't come to the party, we don't do our best, and unfortunately it's the ANC that going to suffer, and of course the people, because if there is no service delivery, people are going to suffer. So we have to be brutally honest about these things, and we must not sugarcoat them. And that's why you were shocked earlier on when I was saying there are a lot of problems, and you say, yeah, you are telling to the wrong person. No, I'll say this, there are a lot of problems. Remember, these are daily lived experiences of people. So you can't come up with a story that says everything is perfect, there is no unemployment, there is no poverty. I mean, we've got relatives, we've got friends. Though sometimes you guys think we live somewhere. I mean, I've got relatives who still lives in Alex, in Amanskral, all over the country, and I visit there. I still have friends, and I know the daily lived experiences of people, and that's what inspires me to work hard and where I am, try to make a difference. Because otherwise, if we don't make difference where we are given responsibility, because I think it starts with all of us doing our bit wherever we are. We will not be able to change this country, and I'm optimistic. I think things can change, and certain decisions must be taken, and people must just do their work.
So, if I'm correct, Sandton is the economic hub of Africa.
Is the richest square mile
Yes.
in Africa. You've
Right.
got the JSE there, you've got the biggest banks there and all that. Yes, it is.
It
in a
is,
way.
right?
Yeah.
And you're the Gauteng MEC
Yes.
for economics.
For finance and economic development.
Yes. So, when we spoke just now, you talked about when you were younger and the Young Lions, it was about economic development and about
political, and then now it's about economic freedom. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so where are we? Because the economy is the issue of contention when we
Yes.
speak honestly.
Yes.
And when you were young, you were fighting for the economic freedom for us. Right? So now that you're in this position, where are we now? Have there been significant changes economically?
You are raising a very important and fundamental question, and that can be uncomfortable to some. And you must never stop raising it. It's a question that has to be answered honestly. And if you look at our trajectory since 1994, of course we've made a lot of strides, a lot of progress in different areas. It can be in access to education, the building of infrastructure, giving people houses, you name them. But unfortunately, one of the biggest weaknesses, I'll call, since 94 has been our inability as a country to change the structure of the economy and the ownership patterns. The truth is, the overwhelming majority of our people are not owning the means of production. The overwhelming majority of our people are not earning a lot of money as compared to their white counterparts. Even those that are said to be middle class, they actually are a middle class because they are able to get credit. They are just credit worthy. And they live from hand to mouth and all that. It's a tragic story. But
so even the rich blacks are not rich.
Some, very few. There are very few who will be rich. Very, very few. And even those very few, you can categorize them. There are few who owns the means of production. And here I mean the mines, I mean capital. So it's a tragic story, which I think we've had framework, which I think it's a good framework, has to be followed, has to be implemented to the latter. But ultimately, you require leadership that is decisive to be able to implement all this. And by leadership, I know people want to single out individuals. No, all of us who are given responsibility at different levels. The question, and you are correctly, as you have asked me, what do I think must happen? What do I think it's a problem? I know there's a problem. The question is, what am I doing where I am? And every leader must answer that question. Wherever you are, what are you doing? But because I represent the ANC in government, I serve at the pleasure of the ANC and, of course, the people by extension, because they voted for the ANC. So I don't represent myself there. So the ANC has given us a mandate. And one of the things that the ANC has said we must do, we need to reduce inequality. So it means there must be programs at the provincial government level. How the government spends at least 37 billion rand every year procuring goods and services. So we've said to our team, from this 37 billion, we must be able to say how much goes to women, how much goes to youth, how much goes to people living with disabilities, how much goes to township-based entrepreneurs and SMMEs. But one of the biggest challenge is what we call fronting, where you have Ntsiki being the director, but the owner in reality is Lebogang. You have so from Alexandra being owning this company, but there's a white person behind that company. That's one of the biggest problems. So there's a whole range of things we have to do. We have to find a way of identifying the right entrepreneurs who have the right attitude, who are committed, but we must also deal with the consciousness of society, consciousness of everyone, and for people to understand that if we come with this set aside and policies for empowerment, it's not for its own sake. It's because we have to change the structure and the ownership of the economy. And because the budget and the policies are at least some of the instruments at our disposal as government, that's what we can use to transform. So we have to use these instruments, amongst others, the budget and the laws, to change the structure and the ownership patterns of the economy. So in practical terms, in Gauteng, I can tell you now, we have set the targets and we are holding all our departments accountable. And it's something that we are able to regularly brief the provincial parliament, what is known as the legislature, engage with stakeholders regularly. But I think there's also an opportunity to grow the economy. And the question will be how and all that, and there's a lot of work we're doing there and all that, because we've been saying the Gauteng GDP has been hovering around between 33-35% for the longest of time, and we think there's an opportunity to grow it so that we give a new entrance into the economy an opportunity to participate. And we have to be deliberate because once again, we don't want to unlock the economy, create opportunities, only to find that our people are not taking up those opportunities. Look at digital economy and look at innovation. I was told a very sad story about a group of 4 young black entrepreneurs who innovated some app, and it was bought from them for about 20 million rand, and that seemed like a lot of money a few years ago, 3 years or so. And of course, they bought Range Rovers and all that, and they don't have the money now. But guess what? A few years later, that innovation has been sold for more than 450 million. So the wanting instant gratification as well, it's another issue. And that's why I'm talking about consciousness. We will do our part where we are, and we will push. Now we want to create a state-owned bank in Gauteng because we want to be able to help entrepreneurs to access funding, because funding is one of the biggest problems for small businesses, even for big businesses, but we are concerned largely about small businesses. So if we don't do something drastic and radical, we will not be able to move. And I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, it's not going to happen. And the big guys don't want that, by the way. So you have the struggling guys saying, no, you guys have been talking too much for a long time. You're not doing anything. And the big guys are saying, you don't have the capacity. You're not going to do it. So, but I'm confident we are going to do it. We have thought now about how to do it because we are clear that you need to have a partner that has got the money, that has got the skills, that has got the systems and the networks to be able to do that. We won't be able to do it on our own as government, because as government, we have to do many other things, and the limited resources at our disposal must be deployed to dealing with education, with health, on the 30th of October, the Minister of Finance will be presenting the medium-term budget, and he will be outlining the challenges that we are facing, and he'll be painting a picture that as a country we face huge challenges. But as I've said to you before we started the formal engagement, if we don't accept and appreciate the problems, we will not do anything about them. And I know it could be depressing to be hearing about the problems over and over again. But the point is not about just articulating the problems. It's about how fast do we move in solving those problems. And I think that's what we ought to do as government at all levels.
So a lot of our problems as a people come from the fact that there's a lot of monopolies in our economic structures. Is the government perhaps thinking of ways of capping how much of the economy you can take? Like, why does Rupert get to eat here, everywhere, a piece everywhere, and there's no policies or rules in place that say, no, you can't take everything? Like, so is there...
Our economy is open. It's a capitalist economy. And as you know, it's capitalist dominated, let me put it that way, because you still have some state ownership, the state-owned enterprises like Eskom, Transnet, but at the end of the day, it's capitalist dominated, and you know the system of capitalism. So I would not want to create an impression that you can do that in this capitalist. So the issue is, how do you become an intervene as a state, intervene and decisively. Unfortunately, capitalism is built on greed and exploitation. That's how the system is. So I think the government, which it should be developmental in approach, must intervene in the interest of the overwhelming majority, must create the opportunities. And that's why I'm saying the tools at our disposal, it's policy and lawmaking, and it's the budget that we have. How do we utilize these tools becomes important and becomes an indicator of whether there's a political will or not to transform the economy and to facilitate the integration of the overwhelming majority of the people into the mainstream economy. And from where I'm sitting, at least at the provincial level, because there's macroeconomic policy which is dealt with, and the monetary policy at the national level. We deal with the micro and we are guided by that. But I think we have a framework which helps us to achieve transformative imperatives. And I think we just have to do our work. And where we are, be able to account for what we have been able to do. And we should also put clear timelines and targets. And we must be held accountable by society, because we have been voted, despite the fact that it's a government of provincial unity or national unity, but the people vote because they expect that we must serve them, there must be changes, and if you can't do anything, then you must not be in office, you must live and stay at home. So we can't complain, we must just continue doing our work and working hard.
So as the department, is there a way that you police the economic flows in this country? Like, we know, like, mining is where we get where the most money is plundered from us. So are there like rules and regulations around what miners have to give back? Because we're hearing stories of most of the illicit cash flow in the country is actually coming from corporates.
That's another challenge, illicit activities, because it deprives the government the opportunity to get resources so that those resources can be spent developing our people, which will have to be dealt with. But remember, you've got national government, provincial government, so there are things we can do in the province, and there are things must be done that must be done. For instance, mining, it's a national competence. There's a department of mining. The monitoring of monies is done by the Reserve Bank, and there's some role that the National Treasury plays at the national level. So at this level, we do monitor, and that's why we've got a program that we call Firm to Firm, where we visit firms, not just to monitor, but to also work with them and understand what are their needs, so that we are able to help them to be sustainable, to create jobs, but to also grow. So we do play our role where we are expected to.
And Lelo, okay, we wonder, I'm sure you don't have much time, but let's get to GNU. And you can see that on the ground, we are a little bit, the GNU is pushed more by you guys than it is by us. So can we have like a bit of transparency? Can we have, where are you feeling? What are your feelings? Where are you at about the GNU?
Look,
and why should we believe in it?
Look, I'm a member of the ANC, so I'm not going to speak outside the framework and outside the discipline of the ANC, because that's ill discipline. The ANC has a position on coalition arrangements. And one of the things that the ANC says is that it wants to work with everyone. And I know people have been hopping on the DA issue. The DA is not the only partner in that coalition. There are other partners. There's Gating, PA, and there's other parties and all that. So what I'm saying is, at this point, we've got the GNU. And then we need to look at, since its inception, what has there been progress or not? And I think there has been. Might not be as fast. It might not have trickled down and reached people to an extent that it can change their daily lived experiences and all that. But as you have seen, the exchange rate has been,
but isn't that controlled by the same people who have set this whole thing up?
Yeah.
So it would.
Yeah. What I don't want to do is to then engage in all those
dramas.
And all that, because I'm not a controversial figure, and that's why I was surprised when you wanted to speak to me.
I'm also not a controversial figure,
I thought you are, but
no.
So I'm not. So and I'm humbled that you, because I saw on your tweet you were saying, I've never had an MEC on my show.
Yes.
So I would and I think it's a privilege for me to be part of your show. So I wouldn't want to dwell on those issues, because the problem is, and I'm not saying it's perfect, by the way. There will be weaknesses. So I'm not saying it's not perfect, but if I have reservations, I'll raise my reservations in the ANC. Because to want to be a hero and to be liked by people, and then you raise issues here which are not going to solve the problem, are just going to make you to be the talk of town, and you will trend, and you are with Tsiki, and Tsiki's podcast will be all over. That's not the point. It's not going to help. What is important is, how do we change the lives of the people? Because this bickering and competing for space and who can best and eloquently articulate the problems of people, it's not the point. The time of articulating problems of people is over. We all know there's poverty, there's unemployment, the economy has not been growing, and there's been COVID-19 and all that. What do we do? That's what I think we need to focus on.
So more solutions-based.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Mr. MEC.
It's
I
a
know
pleasure.
you're such a busy guy.
Thank you very
so
much.
much for
Thank you
making
very
time
much for
us
coming
there.
through. Sure.
And then I'll let you know when the episode comes out.
Thank you.
Siyabulela.
Bulela mna.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into e off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.